Talking Texas football, a month away from spring practice. We got Matthew Miller on the line. Matthew hosts our post-game shows here at the Voice of College Football for the Longhorns. Matthew, what's going on?
Nothing much, Mark. Just excited. Spring practice is right around the corner. We get to talk more Texas football, get to see the guys out in action a little bit, so it'll be nice.
Yeah, I don't know that a lot of people nationally realize how close this team was to doing really big things this past season. So 8-4 in the regular season, lose a bowl game to Washington. So from 5-7 to 8-5, and then hopefully for Texas fans, big things in 2023. And as you mentioned to me before we started to record, there's reason for optimism, obviously, with all the talent and number 3 recruiting class. But with so many starters coming back on offense, guess we'll start with the guy that everybody's looking at, and that's Quinn Ewers, who showed off the arm talent on the big stage right out of the gate against Alabama after the week 1 performance. And then it was a bit shaky and inconsistent from there.
Yeah, 100%. He came out versus Alabama firing. He was delivering deep balls that were right on the money. Xavier Worthy caught a couple, dropped a couple, but then he gets hurt in that game. And then you kind of see him struggle throughout the year, especially the Oklahoma State game comes to mind. Didn't even complete 45% of his passes. That's atrocious for anybody. And he played a great game at some points during the season. Other points he didn't. There were halves where or even throws where you'd say, wow, that's a great half or a great throw. But then he wasn't consistent with that. There was also in the Oklahoma State game, he hurt his thumb prior to the game, or his index finger, one of the two. And that kind of got hushed down. And I'm wondering if that had an effect on him, because he played decent in the Washington game. He didn't play terrible. But if he can take that next step with this team that's come back around him, 10 of 11 starters, there's a real chance that Texas is in that Big 12 championship game later in the year in December.
Now, Matthew, you can probably correct me on the blue chip status of Malik Murphy, but he was roughly a top 5 quarterback in the nation, something in that range.
Yes, he was big arm, big kid out of California. Didn't play at the best high school. If you watch the players he played with, they were not very good. A lot of drop passes, and he has a cannon of as an arm. I believe as a junior in high school, he threw the ball 78 yards. Not many human beings can do that. So I think that's someone to look out for, because if he takes his mental approach to that next step and he keeps, and with his talent, he might be just as talented as Quinn Ewers. So he could creep up there and compete with Quinn Ewers, I think, for that starting job. I don't think he's going to, but there's a possibility of that. And I think people are already crowning Arch Manning to be the backup quarterback. I really believe Malik Murphy is the backup quarterback for most, if not all, of the season. And I don't think Arch gets up into that point. I think he's the third string this season. And then if everything goes right, Quinn Ewers graduates, Arch Manning gets better, and then Arch takes over next year.
So then what does Malik Murphy do? And I know that you don't know the answer to this question, but with 3 guys with that type of star rating next to their names, you got to think one of them's going to bail.
100%. It's going to be the Hudson Card route, in my opinion. I think he sticks out this year, learns under Steve Sarkisian, takes whatever he can from that offensive mind, offensive philosophy, and then eventually transferred it out if he cannot beat out Arch Manning. At the end of the day, as a Texas fan, if he can beat out Arch Manning, he's probably pretty good. So if that's the case next year and Arch Manning transfers, that's fine. I just want the guy, whoever it is, after Quinn Ewers, to be obviously a good player, a good quarterback. I don't really care about the name on the back of the jersey. The name on the front, to me, is a lot more important. And I think, like I said, I think you're going to see him push Quinn Ewers for the starting job a little bit in spring. I don't think he'll get it, but I think he'll push him.
So that being the case, and perception, optics always being important, politics playing a part in big-time college football, and especially at Texas, do you have any reservation that even if Quinn Ewers is not the best quarterback, that they're still going to go with him and stick with him?
That's a good question. I don't think so, because of who you have now on campus. You have Arch Manning on campus, and that's a gigantic name. And if Quinn Ewers doesn't work out and Malik Murphy's as good or better, I think you play him. And if Quinn wants to transfer, go ahead, because guess what? The third string quarterback's got a big name as well, and I think he's pretty talented. He was the number 1 ranked quarterback coming out of a high school for most recruiting sites. I think the ESPN was the only one that didn't have him as the number 1 quarterback. So if he's got to transfer, he's got to transfer. I don't see that happening, though. I do believe he'll be the starting quarterback. I just think he will get pushed a little bit more than people think he's going to.
Yeah, I didn't say all that necessarily thinking that the Ewers name was bigger than the Manning name.
Yeah.
I was thinking more Malik Murphy in terms of this spring's competition going into August.